Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special lunchtime bite session where we will talk about the 2025 Hazel Rowley Literary Fellowship. Applications for the fellowship closed on 16 November. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that Writers Victoria's offices are on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to elders past and present. This land has never been ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. My name is Gabriela Muñoz, and I am the Program Admin Officer Competitions here at Writers Victoria. I'll be helping out on Zoom today, and my colleague Dea Jeremich will moderate this session. Please feel free to send us a message in the chat or to raise your hand if you have any questions about the Literary Fellowship. I'll now hand things over to my colleague Dea and to Della, Rowley, Lynn, Buchanan, and Irene, the Hazel Rowley Fellowship Committee. Dea.
Thank you, Gabriela, for the beautiful introduction. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our session today. Firstly, I'd like to introduce all of our panelists today. We have Della Rowley, and Della is Hazel Rowley's younger sister and literary executor. She lives in Adelaide, where she and Hazel grew up. Della was fortunate to experience Hazel's wonderful imagination and inspirational energy and talent. She co-authored the book Life as Art, the biographical writing of Bella Rowley. Lynn Buchanan was a close friend of Hazel Rowley for 30 years. She shared many conversations with Hazel on the joys and despairs of writing biography. She co-authored the book Life as Art, the biographical writing of Hazel Rowley. Irene, Tomaszewski shared a friendship with Hazel that spanned over 25 years in a couple of continents. They had many conversations, often during a long walk or over a meal, about books, writing, relationships, and the general stuff of life. Over the course of their friendship, Irene was fortunate to have visited and traveled with Hazel at critical points of her writing career. Welcome to you all. The first question is for Della. Can you please share a personal memory that captures Hazel's spirit and how that influenced the creation of this fellowship?
Okay, well, before I do that, Dea, I thought I would just tell you a little bit about why we set the fellowship up, because my sister was a fairly well-renowned biographer. She wrote 4 really well-acclaimed biographies, one of Christina Stead. Then she wrote about Richard Wright, and then she wrote relationship biographies of Simone de Beauvoir and Jean-Paul Sartre, and her final biography was about Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt. And then she died suddenly, and it was an incredible shock to us all, because Hazel had friends in France, in America she was living at the time, and obviously in Australia. And so everyone was saying, well, what can we do? She's died and she's only 59. What can we do in her memory? So it really fell to the 3 of us. So Irene, Tomaszewski, Lynn Buchanan, and myself were the main drivers, and we said we would do something in relation to biography. And the reason we chose this to set up this fellowship is because Hazel always had problems between projects. So she'd be busy writing and researching and interviewing people, and then when she finished, she was at a loose end. She'd say, oh, shall I write a biography about Sidney Poitier? And she'd start off on that, and then she'd go, no, maybe I'll write one about Germaine Greer, and she'd start off on that, and then and then she so we felt that if Hazel had problem between projects, then probably other people did too. And so we felt that this would be a good way of giving people a boost on their way. And so really that's the origins of this fellowship. And
Oh,
so
sorry,
now,
continue.
would you like me to answer the question?
Yes, continue.
Well, Hazel was a very enthusiastic person, and she was very interested in people. She loved finding out what was behind people's facade. So I suppose she was sort of interested in psychology and history and stories. She just loved telling stories and hearing stories. And so fairly obviously biography fell out of that, because it's details about a person. And so she began, as I said, writing a biography of Christina Stead while she was an academic at Deakin University in Australia. And then she realized, gosh, that's hard work, working full-time and writing a book. Maybe I need to go somewhere where I can write full-time. And so she went to America. But probably more of that in further questions.
Thank you so much. It is really important that we support creators because it is a very difficult industry, especially as you said, working full time and trying to balance all of that. So I'm sure everyone here is very appreciative that you created the fellowship to be able to support also a niche of writing. Biography is not really spoken about often.
No,
when we talk about funding,
yes, it doesn't get a lot of funding.
Yeah, so we're all grateful for that. And I was just wondering if the conversations that you had with Hazel, did it shape your understanding of biographical writing? And what would you, in your insights, pass on to other applicants?
Well, it definitely did. Because Hazel always found an angle of curiosity in whoever she was writing about. And that's the key, is what is it that I want to know about this person? For instance, when she wrote about Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt, she said, the fact that I'm fascinated by is that Franklin caught polio and was a paraplegic by the age of 40. And yet he still became one of America's highest acclaimed presidents, and somehow or other, the media never caught any shots of him in a wheelchair. They had full control of the media in those days. And but despite this physical disability, he was a magnificent president of the United States. And so Hazel wanted to find out about how that happened. And another example is that with Christina Stead was brought up in Sydney, and she wrote, what's her first book, Lynn, that she wrote?
A Man Who Loved Children.
A Man Who Loved Children, that's right. And she wrote that, and the publishers, the people who published it were American. So she wrote it based in Sydney, and then they said, no, you're going to have to change the whole scenery of this book and give it an American format. So she had to change all of Watson Bay and Sydney and everything and change it to Czechoslovakia. How do you say that word? Czechoslovakia in Boston.
Something like that.
Anyway, what an incredible thing to have to do. And then when she was 24, when everybody else at that age was getting married and having children and, doing what women were supposed to do, she hopped on a boat and left the country for Europe and never came back to Australia until she was in her 80s. So isn't that a curious angle about a person? So that's my point. Grab the interest of the judges. Think about, how am I going to make this biography something worth reading? Why would people want to read it?
Yes, great advice. And actually, that's a perfect way to now go into the questions that have been asked by participants. And again, if anyone has questions throughout the session, feel free to pop it in the chat and I'll get to it when I can. So we have two questions from Monique. One is, should the writing sample be the full 3,000 words, or would a shorter piece be acceptable? Also, is it fine to submit a sample that has already been published? And then I have another one from her, but you can answer that one first.
Is this me or is this Lynn, this one?
This can be open to both of you if you wish.
Don't mind.
You have a go, Lynn. I've been.
Yeah, we're all sick of you now, Della.
Yeah. Okay.
No. Yes, of course you can submit something shorter. The main purpose of the writing sample is so we see how well you can write, basically. So if you think that a shorter piece will give us a really great feel for your writing style, that's fine. And yeah, absolutely, you can include something that's already been published, because you know, people who apply to us, they're at different stages of their projects. So you may not have actually, if you've started writing something about the project that you're applying to us for, then by all means include that. But it doesn't have to be that, because you may not have started writing yet. So, you know, if you've got something that's been published, that's fine. You can submit that to us. Yeah.
But
And
we
this-
also do love to see something, if you've already started this particular
Oh yeah.
biography, we love to see how it's going by reading a piece of that.
Well, we do. Yeah, that's absolutely true. We do. But I'm very conscious that, you know, sometimes things evolve as you work on something. So, you know, you might still be very much at first draft stage. So it's really up to you, like how you know, put your best foot forward, basically. Whatever you think will show your writing in the best light is the, you know, the key to it, really. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Great. And another one from Monique as well is, as an academic, I'm wondering what to include in my CV. Should I focus only on the publications relevant to the fellowship, or include a broader range of work? Okay,
I'll just add to that too. So I would say you can include a broader range, because you know, it's hard to know what's strictly relevant to us. But please don't give us like a really detailed academic CV that's got a list of, you know, 50 articles that you've had published, because that's, yeah, we're not so interested in that. So just kind of tailor it a bit is what I would say. But it's fine to include, if you've written academic books, it's fine to include that as well. But I guess one thing I would say to academics is that although Hazel was an academic originally, but she left academia, and one of the things that is really compelling about her books is that they're written for a general audience. So they're not written as academic books. So we want books that are really accessible and interesting for anybody to read. So it's very important, if you're an academic, to
shed your academic boots. That's what Hazel used to say.
Sorry, Della?
Hazel used to say, shed your academic boots.
Shed your academic boots. That's right. Yeah. So it's sort of, you need to show us how your book is going to appeal to a wider audience, because that's what we're really looking for. We're not interested in just publishing some dry academic biography. Yeah.
Great, thank you for that. We also have a question from Nigel. We have a couple of questions from him, so I'll start with the first one. If you're unsuccessful, are you able to apply again? If so, is there any exclusion period during which you can't reapply? And can you reapply with the same project?
Okay, I'll take that one. If you're unsuccessful, yes, apply again. This is an example of a person. This book here, My Tongue is My Own, by Anne-Marie Priest. Can you see it all? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. She was our fellow a few years ago. Can't remember the year, but she applied 3 times before she got the fellowship. I don't think it was always the same
not
project.
for the same project. Only twice for the same project, I think.
Only twice for the same project, but once on another project. And so she was not disheartened, but she applied again. And what is important if you apply again is give us something. Don't give us the same application entirely. We want to know what progress you've made in the meantime, in the last year, or, you know, whatever. Because if you're not going to make progress, it's not very appealing to us to think that, you know, if we give you a fellowship, you'll make progress. So yes, you can apply again, absolutely, but just show us the changes you've made in the meantime. And there's no exclusion period. You can apply the very next year.
Or you can apply 4 years later if you want to. You know, that's fine too. Yeah. But you have to have done something in those 4 years.
Yes.
Yes. And in terms of outlining a budget proposal, how detailed is it expected to be? And the exact nature of some travel needs, for example, may only become apparent as the research progresses.
Yeah, that's Nigel again, is it? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Hi there, Nigel. All right. So there's some latitude. We don't expect you to be totally specific and keep to it. You know, estimations, airfares go up and things like that. And so estimations of airfares is quite fine. We just want to know the more approximate division of, you know, how much you're going to be spending on travel, how much you're going to be spending on paying for getting material from libraries, you know, how, you know, all those categories. But, you know, we're quite reasonable. We don't hold you to every last dollar.
No.
And also the final one from Nigel, are applications from existing published authors viewed more favorably?
Lynn?
Not necessarily. No. I mean, our first fellowship recipient, Mary Hoban, who you know, published a book that won awards. She'd never published before. So I mean, I guess obviously if someone has already published, they do have a slight advantage because, you know, they've got some experience in completing a long project, because a biography is a long project, isn't it? It takes a few years to write. So one of the things that we're evaluating is we want to feel confident that the person has got a good chance of completing the project. So you know, it's really hard to say case by case, but we're definitely very open to unpublished authors as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And our fellowship recipients, you know, if you look on our website, which is just Google Hazel Rowley, and you'll see our website, which is basically just hazelrowley.com. And you look at the list of previous recipients, you'll see that they're quite a broad range of people from different, you know, levels of writing experience. So yes, it's hard to say. It might be some advantage, but we're definitely not focusing on, you know, only people who've previously published.
No, definitely not. Definitely
Yeah.
not. And you'll see by looking on the website how varied the range of topics are that we've supported.
And sorry, I do have direct questions that have just popped into the chat from what was just discussed. Mary has asked, what does completing the project mean? A published book or what?
Well, our fellowship.
Oh, Renee.
Renee.
In terms of the conditions that we ask for when we give the funding to the successful submitter is that you account for the funds that you've spent, and accounting for them is what you've done with the funds, where you've travelled, how it's aided your research, what you've learned through that research, what libraries you've spent time in, what you've learned. So we expect a sort of a half-year report and a full-year report based on what you've done with the funds that we've given you. Now, whether that eventually ends up in a published book, that depends on your own capacity to market, promote, you know, get a deal with a publisher, you know, all of those things. So it's not about finishing a book, which we do love to see, and we've been very successful in nearly all of our submitters or our successful fellows have been able to publish, but not every book does end up being published. So from our point of view, the acquitting of the funds is about how you've spent the $20,000 if you're lucky enough to get it, or that's the demands within the time frame that's specified. And obviously there's some negotiation around that time frame if travel's delayed or research is delayed. But really the responsibilities that you would have when you win a fellowship is acquitting the funds according to the terms and conditions of the contract.
Yeah, now that's spot on, absolutely, because we're very conscious that it's not always easy to get published. So our aim is to help people, you know, finish a book that hopefully will get published, but it doesn't, you know, doesn't always happen. Yeah.
Well, because the duration of our fellowship is 1 year, and it's pretty hard to. I mean, Hazel's biographies took 4 or 5 years each. So, you know, we can't expect you to turn around and create a biography in a year.
But can I just say on that, to add to what Della's saying, is we have people applying at different stages of their project. So you can apply if you're in the very early stages. We don't want you to apply if you've just had a bright idea. We want you to have some sort of sense of where you're going with it. So we'd like you to have at least commenced. But some people haven't got very far. Some people are sort of halfway through, and they need help completing it. Some people are sort of quite close to the end, but they still need some assistance in finishing it off. So there's no restriction on what stage you're at in your project.
So I have another one from Mary, and she has also asked, is the fellowship for research or for writing mostly? A percentage breakdown, for example, is it 60-40, or is that not an issue?
Okay, I'll take that one. Well, it's interesting in writing a biography because Hazel used to say, don't do all your research first before you start writing. You know, if you're a writer, you do some research and you write the particular part of the life that you have researched. And then it'll come to you, oh, I need to do a bit more research to get for the next part of the life, and so on. So writing a biography isn't a question of separating research from writing. And it really, the whole intention of the fellowship is to give people that little extra money so that they can go and interview a few more people or travel to see a particular library that's got the essential papers in it, and just to make the biography better with this boost of funding.
But and just to follow on from that, so we don't have there's no prescription on, you know, what percentage of the budget might go towards particular things. We just want you to be clear about how you're intending to spend the money. Yeah, but the focus is on research and travel. Yeah.
So a good example, if I could just jump into, is the book that Della just showed us, Anne-Marie Priest. She used her funding to go to Tasmania, where the person lived, and spent 6 weeks researching and also 6 weeks writing there. So the funding was used to support her writing, but while she was living there writing and researching. So that's the sort of, we're interested in, if you like, sort of the where and why and how, but you know, if it doesn't have to be specifically, as already said, a particular sort of formula.
True. Yeah.
Great. We have another question from Lara. Is it seen as negative if writing is not your primary career, but a particular biography is a passion project?
No,
No.
that's fine.
Yeah, thought so.
Yeah, totally fine.
But can I just
Yeah.
say then, with passion projects, and we do often receive a number of applications for them, you have to tell us why it should be other people's passion as well.
Mm.
The thing about passion projects is they can be a very singular pursuit.
Yeah.
And we are looking with our lens is often, you know, what would Hazel think? What would she like? What has she been interested in? What does it reflect? So a passion project would be looking for not why it's your passion, but why it would be of interest to other people. It's sort of social political context, it's historical context, the significance of that person, the significance of that subject, the significance of what they did, what they contributed, how. If you, again, go back and have a look, as Lynn and Della's already said, look at what we've published, look at what, you know, who the authors have chosen to write about, and there's quite a variety, but all of them we would like to think that you would find interesting and want to read. So it's not just about a passion, it's about what would make other people attracted to that subject as well.
Great answer. We also have a question from Willa. Can the award be spent over 2 years rather than 1?
Well, we've never actually been asked that before, but
Don't know.
well,
I guess we probably want to know why. And the answer would be maybe, I guess. Look, I mean, one of the reasons why we've structured it this way is because we're giving the fellowship away each year, and we actually really want people to focus on what they're doing. I mean, you know, we want people to get on with it. So yeah, it hasn't come up before, so we can't give you a definitive answer. Sorry.
well, during COVID, we did extend it to 18 months because people were less able to travel. But now it's back. Now that you can travel, it's back to 12 months.
Yes,
I think Willa's given a read. Has she said a read?
Yes, so yes, Willa says this is because there would be some research travel in 2 consecutive years.
Oh, okay.
Maybe this could be answered in an email when you've all had a little bit more time to think about it. If that's okay, Willa, I can pass on the details.
I don't see any real problem with
it would
but
probably be
depends on the
fine
subject.
if there's a good reason for it. We're pretty flexible about all of that. And just by the way, if any questions don't get answered here today, you can always submit questions to Writers Victoria and we will answer them for you. So just to reassure you about that. So, but we are very flexible about things. If people have got a good reason for why they're doing something in a particular way, that's fine. You know, we're trying to sort of facilitate and help as much as we can, rather than being too prescriptive.
We don't want to be difficult.
No, we don't want to be difficult. No, that's right.
And we also have a question from Karen. Can it be a chapter book for upper primary biography or a picture book biography?
Don't quite know what you mean by upper primary biography. Do you mean a biography of a particular person, or?
I think Karen's nodding yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So a biography of a person, but it's tailored towards a school market. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so sort of for grade 5, 6 readers, you know, people reading it at that level.
Okay. Not something that's come up before, but look, we're open to anything, you know, really. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. By all means. I mean, I think with a project like that, you'd have to sort of really explain to us why it's important, and, you know, is there a bit of a gap there that you see, something that you think that the kids would really benefit from? But
definitely in Australia, a lot of the biography stuff is American stuff, so it's lovely to be doing Australian history things.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, we haven't had any projects like that before, so, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, unique. That's great. That's a great start. Thank you for your question. We also have Monique asking, I'm wondering whether the money can be used to cover some teaching costs. In my case, university teaching, as well as travel and research costs.
I don't understand. Do you mean that you're teaching, Monique?
Yes, I do. Mind teaching.
Do you mean to pay for someone to do your teaching, or
Yes.
no?
Yeah.
We're not like,
I saw.
yeah. So we're not like the ARC. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the
No.
stipulation about tuition costs, but I wasn't quite sure what that meant. So
Yeah,
just wanted to
no.
clarify.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. So we're quite different to the ARC. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, it's
Sorry,
I had
for
a
people
fellowship.
who don't know, the ARC means Australian Research Council. I think that's what it stands for, Monique,
Yeah.
and it's something academics can apply to them for grants. And one of the things they do is that you can buy out your teaching to get you time to work on the project.
Yeah, I had a fellowship at the State Library for the subject I'm researching, and that allowed buying out of my teaching. So I just wanted to see.
Yeah. No,
Makes sense.
We don't cover that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
I'm just asking for clarification from Andrew about his question, so I'll just pop to the next one.
Okay.
Natalie has asked, do you look on memoir applications as favorably as biography applications? I note you funded the Hate Race Maxime Benabar Clark, and which is a hybrid memoir / creative nonfiction.
Yes. Yes. Yes, this is the memoir, Maxime Benabar Clark's memoir, and it I think she was our second fellow.
Possibly the third, I think.
Oh, third. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, this was fairly early in Maxime Benabar Clark's career, and those in Melbourne would probably have heard of her because she's gone on to wonderful things. And this also became a play later shown last year. But she sparked interest hugely because of the fact that she's Black. She's has a interesting, her background is Jamaican, English, Australian, and race, of course, is a huge and interesting issue. And she speaks very viscerally about race. And so she was, certainly an excellent fellow. And I think memoirs are certainly in the mix if they have a particular interest for us. We don't get as many memoirs as we have for biographies.
Thank you for your answer. So I have the question from Andrew. They've said one of the requirements in the application form is to provide contact details for 2 referees. Can you provide a bit of color to what you were looking for when speaking with referees? I believe Andrew is a first-time author, so we'd like some more context about what you'd be looking for in terms of a referee.
Do you want to take that, Lynn?
If you like. To be honest, I don't know whether we've ever checked with referees, actually. It's just kind of a, how shall I put it? Like an accountability thing, I suppose, a checking thing, so that if we were a bit unsure about someone, it would just be a person we could check in with to just kind of verify, is this person who they seem to be, is the project really what they're, what do you think it's like?
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
I think we have particularly important, of course, and is when people want to write about Indigenous themes.
Yeah.
We are very keen to know that that the person is well embedded in that community. And that's where we would probably be following up, because we do get quite a lot of non-Indigenous authors who want to write about Indigenous themes. and you know, that's a very sensitive area.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be anyone particularly, you know, I don't know, you know, it's not as though it has to be a famous writer or something, you know, as your referee. I mean, you just, yeah. So just someone who you think can vouch for your project, really, if we do need to follow up.
Yes, yes.
Great. Oh, another question just popped in. Oh, they've said great answer. That's nice.
Oh,
thank you, Andrew.
Thank
Our
you.
pleasure. Our pleasure.
I wanted to ask Irene, how do you plan to announce the winners for 2025?
Thanks, Daya. We have a pretty standard formula now. We alternate our announcements between Adelaide Writers' Week in recognition of Hazel having lived in Adelaide, and we have support from Adelaide Writers' Week, and we alternate the events with Melbourne. So this year, the 2024 announcement was made in Melbourne at the Wheeler Centre. We always make the announcement in March to coincide with the schedule, but also around about the time, sadly, that Hazel had died and was due to come back to Melbourne at the time. So this next year, so we have a particular formula in terms of the announcements, but next year's announcement will be made at Adelaide Writers' Week. We already anticipate the date to be the middle of that Writers' Week, which will be the 5th of March. So we have a schedule in terms of, as you know, the applications close on the 16th of November. We then do a shortlisting process. We then contact the non-successfuls. We then let then the successfuls, the shortlist is announced in January. The judging panel meets. I can let others talk about who's on the judging panel, but the judging panel meets in late January, and we then contact the successful person, let them know that the announcement will be made in March. I think you'll find that those details on our website as well, in terms of the announcements and the details.
Very exciting. And also, you just mentioned that you have some judges. If either Lynn or Della or any of you would like to tell us who they are.
Yeah.
Sure.
Go on, you go, Della.
Lynn, go.
So our judge, we change our judges. We've had different judges over time, and you can see who they are on our website. But the ones for 2025, so it's myself and Della, but also Christos Cholkos and Claire Wright. So hopefully they are familiar names to people.
Yes.
Great. And are people able to get feedback on their applications?
Lynn?
Okay. Look, we're not really in the business of giving people feedback. We don't generally give feedback. You know, look, if there's some particular thing that people want to ask us, we're happy to consider it, but no, not in general. Yeah.
And part of the reason is we're a privately funded group, and you know, we are limited with our resources, and giving feedback can get you in a tangle of discussions if you're not careful.
Yeah, that's right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Also, what are some of the top reasons some projects aren't successful?
Okay. Look, I guess a big thing for us is, so as people have mentioned before, I think Irene might have said this. One of the things that we really are looking for, we want a really good project plan that will help us understand, why do you think this is an important project? Why are people likely to, if your book gets published, why are people likely to buy this book? Why would people want to read about it? And so one of the reasons why we've sometimes not considered why we've not shortlisted applications is because basically they just give us a one-page, you know, this is what I want to do. I mean, we're giving away $20,000. So you can't just give us a one-pager and expect us to think, oh, well, that'd be fine. You've got to really explain to us why is this person so interesting? And also, not just that, but also, how are you approaching it? Like, what are you going to do in order to discover more about their life? Obviously, your research might change over time, but we want to know that you've at least thought through how you're approaching it, what kinds of research you'll need to do. And we also want to know, that you've got a realistic timeline. So you're obviously, as Renee mentioned before, you're not going to have finished your whole project through our fellowship, because you might be in the early stages of it and it might be a 5-year project. That's fine. And we're only a year of those 5 years, but we want to know that you've got a bit of a sense that it will take you, 2 years or 3 years or however long you think it will take. It may not take 5 years. Don't be put off. But we don't want someone to come along and say, oh, yeah, I'm just going to toss off this book I'll do a bit of research for 6 months and then I'll spend 6 months writing and then that'll be done. Because we know that that's completely unrealistic. So you've got to give us a really, full flavored idea of why your project is so interesting and important and how you're going to approach it. So that, so the opposite of that is why people don't succeed, if you like. Yeah. And Della and Irene, have you got more to say?
Thanks, Lynn. If I could just add to that, a couple of things, and Lynn's absolutely right, and particularly if the subject has already been written about extensively, and it didn't stop Hazel, as we said. She wrote about Simone de Beauvoir. She wrote about I just forgot the name, Eleanor and Franklin. So we know that she wrote about people who'd already been written extensively about, but she had a different angle or she had a different lens. So show us your angle, show us your lens as to why you're choosing that particular subject. And the other thing that Hazel always said, there's no boring lives, there's just boring writing. And we do look for lively and interesting writing. And try not to have too many typos. So, edit your work before you send it to us and give us, your last draft, not your first draft. We really want thoughtful, considered proposals. They don't have to be completely, fully developed to the nth degree, but we want to know that you've been really thoughtful about your approach, why, how, and what you would do with the money.
Yeah, definitely. And that's right. It doesn't have to be a famous person. Yeah. So just because someone's not so well known doesn't mean that they're not interesting. But if it's a book about your mother, want to know a bit about why your mother is, why other people would be interested in her as well. So we're not interested in family history unless it's got a broader purpose and a broader context. Yeah.
Thank you.
Della, do you want to add anything to that?
No, it's spot on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Really great answers. I feel like this session will be really beneficial to many people. When you're assessing an application, what would you consider as a project that's taking a risk?
Well, you don't have to, pack your whole life up into 2 suitcases and head off to America like my sister did. But my sister was she hated this risk-averse community that we have now encountered. And, so risk is putting yourself out there. It's, talking to other writers. It's interviewing people who have some association with the subject, writing letters to gain more information and hopefully get some answers from people. So travel's always a risk, it's not easy these days. So, you know, just moving yourself and taking the risk and applying for our fellowship, you know, that's a risk. That's a calculated risk, you know?
Della, do you want to talk about Anne-Marie? When we were discussing this beforehand, you had that good example of
Indeed. Okay. Yes.
Priest,
Thank
yeah.
you. So Anne-Marie Priest, the one that wrote about Gwen Harwood, when she wanted to, Gwen Harwood is a poet. She's dead now though, but she lived in Tasmania. And the literary executor for Gwen Harwood was her son. And he said, no, I don't want you to write a biography of Gwen Harwood. But Anne-Marie went ahead nonetheless and was heading off writing an unauthorized biography. And when she'd finished her manuscript, she sent it to the literary executor and said, you know, would you change your mind? Would you now approve it? And very fortunately, he did. She would have published anyway, but having the approval of a literary executor means that you can actually quote directly from your subject. Otherwise, she would have had to do she would have had to work around the quotes, and you know, it's better if you can have direct quotes from your subject. So, you know, that was a risk that actually worked out well for her, but could have been, and she went on and won the best biography for the whole year last year. So, you know,
the National Biography Award.
Yeah, the National Biography Award.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have 10 more minutes left, and I think there's a question from Judith and a question from Ibet on the chat there.
Okay. I'll start with Judith because I can see it directly here. The question is, would you favor projects specifically related to people who lived or were closely related to Australia?
No.
No, not necessarily at all.
Simple answer, no.
No, simple answer, no. It's what we've emphasized before. Tell us why this subject is important to read about now. What's their interest? What's the angle of interest?
I mean, a lot of our successful fellowship people, I think a lot of our subjects are Australian, but they're not all Australian, and that's certainly not a factor. Like that's sort of irrelevant to us, actually. Yeah. You have to be Australian to apply, or a permanent resident to apply, but your subject definitely does not have to be Australian or connected to Australia. No.
In fact, our 2020 winner was living in America, Australian citizen, and his chosen subject was Peter Matheson. He's still unpublished, but he's, you know, in the middle of research, and we're expecting a book in a couple of years. But you can see on our website again the different subjects. But no, he wasn't Australian, and the applicant wasn't even living in Australia when he did the application, but he was an Australian citizen. So we're very eclectic in our consideration of subjects and circumstance.
Great. And we have another question from Yvette. Is there a preference for the work submitted for the Hazel Rowley Fellowship to already considered for publication?
No. Some have applied, and they already have some interest from publishers and even a publishing contract. But no, it's not necessary at all.
No. And one thing I just want to add to that, actually, we haven't sort of talked much about social media, but one of the things that shortlisted people have told us is that sometimes, so we always encourage people, if you do get shortlisted, you know, whatever social media platforms you're on, you know, spread the word and boast and, you know, carry on a lot about it. And some people have been approached by publishers, you know, just through having been on our shortlist. So even if you, you know, so it's even if you don't win the fellowship, you may get some benefit because a few people have told us they're confident that the only reason, or the main, a big factor in why they got published was because we shortlisted them. So, which was a bit of a revelation to us, I have to say, that, publishers thought so much of our fellowship. But, that's kind of good to know, I think, because it means that even if you don't ultimately win the fellowship, you can get a benefit out of applying if you do get shortlisted. And the thing is that we usually get, look, the number of applications ranges from, I think the lowest was 29 and the highest was 61. But usually we get sort of in the high 30s, around 38, 39, and we shortlist down to 8 or 9. So, like it's a fairly, people have commented, it's kind of like a long shortlist, if you like. The reason we do that is because we want to make sure that our judges have, as big a range to choose from as possible. So, there can be a real benefit in applying and getting shortlisted.
Yeah. Another thing, if you're wanting to do a little bit of research before you apply, I've just been recently listening again to Life Sentences by Carolyn Bohm, and a couple of our fellows, Anne-Marie Priest and Eleanor Hogan, have actually been interviewed by Carolyn Bohm on her podcast.
And Matthew as well, I think, as well.
I think
Matthew Lamb as well.
Matthew Lamb's coming up, I think. And I was interviewed,
that's right, he's coming
in relation to this book that Lynn and I edited, called Life as Art, which is a really, can you see it?
Yes.
Yep.
It gives another flavour to Hazel's biographies, her journey of writing a biography, and some of the ups and downs of being a biography. So being a biographer. Yeah. So get it from the library or buy it.
Support our artists and writers.
Indeed. How do we ever make any money if people don't buy our books?
We have another question that's directed more to Writers Victoria, so I'm happy to answer. But for everyone to know, is there a preferred format for submissions, or is there a preview of submittable template so that I can see what's involved before I create an account? Gabriella has kindly placed the link in this chat if everyone's able to see it. So what you can do is you can click this and you can actually download the form, and then you can work from it and then submit it through our website. If you do have any issues, you can always come to us at Writers Victoria, that is, and we'll answer any questions and help you with any technical issues as well. Thank you. Does anyone have questions as we're almost out of time? Oh, everyone is sharing their thank you for the session, as it's been really, really informative. So that's a good start. That's a good start.
Well, can I just say we're really pleased that so many people are interested enough to join this session, and also really want to sort of encourage everyone that no matter what kind of a book you're writing, like you can have a look on our website and you'll see the range of different people and subjects. So, and everyone's approach is different. So the main thing is to just sort of don't try and shoehorn yourself into what you think other people are expecting, but just kind of really, from your own point of view and your own project, just make it as vibrant and interesting as possible, but don't think that you've got to fit into a particular mold, because that's one of the great things about this kind of work is that, as Della said, the big thing with Hazel was the storytelling and the curiosity. And we're always really excited and interested to see the range of different people who apply. And it's really fantastic to see that so many people are interested in biography and really wanting to, tell each other's stories, because that's how we sort of learn more about ourselves, I think, and the world we live in and the the history of the world and all of that stuff. So, it's really fantastic to see so many people who are interested in all of
Certainly
this.
is.
Yeah.
Certainly is. Hazel would be very chuffed.
She would. Yeah, she would.
And actually, I do, Della, have a question for you that is more personal than what we've been discussing today. I was hoping for you to discuss any significant moments in Hazel's life that you think led her to writing biography.
Did we talk about that, Lynn?
Yeah, we did.
Oh dear. Well, I think the issue was that Hazel was just very interested in people, and she was also interested in what went on behind people's facades. For instance, when she was in her early 20s, she interviewed Simone de Beauvoir, the great French feminist.
Wow, yes,
And this was her heroine. She thought everything of Simone de Beauvoir. But the whole interview, and she went along very prepared in Paris, and she spoke reasonable French, and so everything was looking good. But she was very disappointed by the interview, because Simone de Beauvoir just seemed to give rote answers and keep the facade, keep a lot behind a facade. And so the result was Hazel was quite disappointed, but she was undeterred. She knew there was a lot behind that facade, because she had this curiosity. How is it that Simone de Beauvoir and Jean-Paul Sartre can make this pact of honesty that lasts a whole life? They promised that they would tell each other everything. And so she just kept on digging and digging, and finally she got behind the facade. So I think that was a significant moment.
That's really beautiful. Do you actually have any advice for people who may come into difficulty when interviewing people, especially because biography, you're trying to delve deep into somebody's life?
Well, I think just expect that there will be unusual events happen. I mean, there's a story of Hazel turning up with a bunch of flowers to someone's door, all pre-prepared that there was going to have an interview, and the person wouldn't let her in. So Hazel had to take this bunch of flowers and look at them for a few days while they withered and contemplate her failure, So, just expect that it's not all cream cakes and champagne in being a biographer. It's hard work, it's risk-taking. But my final words are to say, get out there, take calculated risks, move, travel, talk to people, and above all, apply for our fellowship.
And Irene, do you have any final thoughts as well for the participants here today?
Thank you.
Just to really echo what Della said, and you do have to be quite resilient, I think, and just keep going, keep at it. And even if you get a no the first time, you might well get a yes the next time or the third time,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, when Hazel approached Germaine Greer because at one stage she wanted to write a biography of Germaine Greer, and so she said we sent a letter to get approval, and she got the letter back from Germaine Greer saying biographers are parasites, in my opinion, and at least have the decency to wait until I'm dead.
But unfortunately, Germaine has outlived Hazel. So.
Indeed. Well,
it was actually in response to Germaine's letter that Hazel said, "That's it. I'm only going to write about dead people." So she changed her sort of formula after that.
That's true. That's a tricky one. You've got to be careful.
That is a tricky one, actually,
about people who are still alive.
Yeah.
It's a whole other can of worms. We won't go there.
Actually, Amy has commented that Germaine Greer is in Castlemaine and in a care home now if anyone wants to try again. So
that's right, she is. That's true.
There you go, have a go. Time to write a biography of Germaine Greer. She might have followed out.
Yeah, I don't suspect it would still be easy. She
Mhm.
might be in a care home, but I don't think she'll be, you know, giving
Apparently
up.
Louis Theroux went in there recently. That's very interesting. And she was feisty. I'm loving
Oh,
all
she
of
was
the
feisty.
inside.
There you go.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you all for speaking with us today. It was
pleasure.
so incredibly informative, and I feel as if everybody would have gotten a lot of the questions answered. It can be a hard process when you're applying for anything. So I wish everybody the best of luck, and thank you, Della, Lynn, and Irene for being with us today.
Thank
Our
you.
pleasure. Our pleasure.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much, everybody. We look forward to reading your submissions.
Yeah, we
Bye-bye.
do.
Thank you.
All right, now I'll be closing the meeting. Enjoy, everybody.